Castle, the CEO here at the Charleston Association of Realtors. This is the property line. The property lines define where one plot of land starts and the other begins. But here we talk about where the lines intersect between the association, government, real estate, agents, brokers, and all that intersection of real property here on the property line. Today, our guest is the 2026 president of Charleston Association of Realtors. He serves as the president-elect this year in 2025. Stephen Kohn, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's talk about this because I always love talking to members about their journey into real estate. So talk about where you grew up and what you kind of did before, to get you into real estate before you got in.
Yeah, great question. So I always tell people, I didn't come from a family of real estate. My parents were not agents or anything like that. I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, born and raised, Duval County, 904. I always say that. But I moved here in 2009 in Charleston. I was in the Air Force for 8 years, had a medical retirement in 2014. And in 2014, I was thinking about what do I want to do? In 2013, my wife was like, hey, we need to buy a house. And that wasn't a thing in my family. It wasn't, I just know how to rent. I know how to go get apartments. I know how I get approved. I know all these things, but she really elevated my mind and made me think about, if I could do it, how many more people that thought like me are out there. And so I wanted to create a larger impact. And so I said, okay, well, if we buy a house, then if I know I can buy a house, I know other people can. And in 2014, went and got went to school. In 2015, I got my license, and man, it's been a journey of impact, purpose, and all the things in between. I will say, I do believe that my real estate my real estate journey starts from my leadership opportunities in the military. I was government contracting. I issue government contracts in the military. So as a contracting officer, it was so much easier for me to get out and focus on contracts and real estate. And the accounting pieces and, all of the conversation, all that type of stuff was super easy for me to translate over for those.
Wow. Those so interesting to see how that translates over, yes. Right? Because to me, that seems to be some of the harder parts of an agent's life is understanding the contracts and that kind of flow.
Yeah, it is. And which is one of my strengths. So, which is why, I went to the broker role, as a broker in charge, because I understand that it's second nature to me. And again, it is a void or, one of the things that agents kind of shy away from. But it's something that I love and, something that I believe that really prepared me for such a time as this.
Well, your journey is super interesting because I think that reflects a lot of into home ownership and your lack of experience growing up with that.
Yeah.
Translates into your passion now, right? Absolutely. I mean, you've been really passionate about creating kind of moderate income housing, helping people that have never really thought about home ownership get into home ownership. You want to talk about a little more about that passion and what drives that and where you see that the Charleston community could really benefit from?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people just don't talk about the journey. They don't talk about the process. You see the end result, but you don't really see how they got there. And there are a lot of people that it's not because they don't want to buy or they don't want to, purchase. It's just because they have lack of knowledge or lack of motivation. Maybe they've been in a family where that wasn't the norm, like mine. So they didn't have the mindset to even think, hey, let me see if I can do this. Now we're in the age of information and knowledge, right? Now that, it's at your fingertips. AI is all over the place.
Well, and to me, that's really the value, of thinking about your business practice as being diverse and inclusive, right?
Yeah.
Because just my background, right? Yeah. It was never that I wasn't going to be a homeowner, right? Like I was a homeowner in my mid-20s, right? Yeah. Because that was always what was expected, and that's what I knew growing up. And I think that's where, agents can really value thinking about, maybe their biases, right? Yeah. Essentially mine, right?
Yeah.
That people don't know about it. I always say that agents should have to sell their house every 5 years to realize how hard it is to move. But I mean, also I think about it in terms of making sure you're aware that not everyone comes from the same background you come from.
Absolutely. I mean, and we're all here to operate and live together, right? So how do we think about, who doesn't have the mindset and the means and the resources that you had, and think about what would you do if you were them, right? And so now that you do have, and the passion really comes behind, now that I do have the knowledge and the information, now I have a duty to spread that knowledge and to spread that information, and not just to consumers, but really to agents. Because if I can reach more agents, then the agents can reach more consumers. And so that's kind of where I position myself as, trying to be that kind of liaison between the consumers, the brokerage world, the real estate leadership world from a realtor standpoint. And again, just kind of be in those rooms where agents may not be. Consumers really have to understand now that, yes, agents have more information, but again, agents are, agents might be coming from a place where, just like you said, it was on their pathway, like it was a stop. They know they had to do it. On my journey, looking back, it wasn't a thing. So I think the more that we all can just recognize that there are biases out there, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that you're trying to do it on purpose. It just means that it's there. You just have to recognize it. And once you recognize it, you reach out to other people that, hey, maybe that is their journey, and we can figure out ways to overcome.
Yeah, how do you? Because you work with a lot of investors too and stuff, and so I'm sure because of your background, a lot of these are probably first-time investors, things like that. So how are you talking to these clients around? They might have just bought their first house ever to live in, and now they're thinking about investment properties. How do you walk them through that journey?
Yeah, we were literally just talking about this yesterday. So I always say, I don't just teach people how to buy a home. I teach them how to stay in the home and sustain the home and maintain it, because there's two different things. Yes, the product is there to get you in the house, but most agents or most people aren't really telling you how to sustain it and how to make this become or possibly your first rental property. I say that specifically for minority and minority organization or minority demographics, but really, we were just talking yesterday about veterans. As a military veteran, I know for a fact when I was in the military, home ownership was not like a thing that they taught, and it was about the VA loan. Yes, there were people that used it, but it wasn't advocated as much as it is now and communicated.
And then how to use that home that you bought when you get moved, transferred somewhere else as a rental property.
Yes, right. So that's some of the things that I teach now and make sure that my agents know, like, hey, how do you do this? But it's also, reaching out to our lender partners and making sure they have not necessarily just have the knowledge, but they have the drive and the passion too to make that happen. Because, as a homeowner myself and as an investor myself, my wife and I, we've done, fix and flip projects, renovation projects. And our goal too was to really just give people an affordable quality of life. Like, they need to be able to have quality things in this house, and it's not, it's not just basic.
I'll not be a slumlord.
Yes, yes. Let's write a book on that for sure. But
give them dignity while they're renting from you, right?
Yes, and yes, it can be a smaller house, but it can be a nice house.
Yeah,
and so that's always been our thing. But I will say, walking them through that process of understanding, hey, here's how generational wealth is not just the equity; it's how you use it. Right. And so just walking them through that, talking them to it, and it takes extra time. And to be honest, like, a lot of agents just don't spend that much time with them. And that's what separates what I think are the most successful agents from, those that are not, is because they take a little more time to give a little more value.
Well, you talk about, you could write a book on that, but you have written a book. You want to talk a little about what your book's about and what some of the lessons in there are?
Yeah, I'll say this.
And how people can grab it.
Oh, absolutely. So I did not come here for that, but I'll say this. So Unleash Your Purpose is the book I wrote, released back in early May of this year. You can find it on Amazon, and you can also just reach out to me, and I want to autograph a book especially for you. But I will say, yes, definitely go to Amazon. You guys can find it. But Unleash Your Purpose is really about, and this is a part of my journey. We just talked about how I started, but I was on a path to figure out what am I doing here? Like I kept getting to certain points and I'm like, well, I thought that was the goal. And then I get there and I'm like, well, you know what? It doesn't really feel like, I don't really feel satisfied or as satisfied as I thought I would when I got here. And so it's a series of these things, but then realizing that it's all a journey, it's all a process. But you have to be aligned in places where you understand that there's value outside of what it brings to you internally. There's impact into the world and impact into whatever your community is, and it's a series of that. One thing I love about it, it's called Unleash Your Purpose because you have to realize that these things are already inside of you. It's not nothing outside. Yes, you get information, you get knowledge, but it activates something in your heart, in your mind, and that's what sparks, what you do on a daily basis, and hopefully, you get to a point where you'll unleash that. But how do I put that into from a real estate perspective? When you think about as an agent, where do I go? Like, what's my pathway forward? Like, what's the end goal? Am I going to be an agent, selling 20, 30 deals a year for the rest of my life? Like, is that what I want to do? And that's something for, every agent to identify. But most agents, no, it's not that. Maybe they want to be a team leader. Maybe they want to be a broker in charge. Maybe they want to, get into real estate association leadership. Just different things. There's different pathways, but I will say you have to talk to people, and there are mentors that are available, but you got to raise your hand. And I think that's something that a lot of agents don't do. And it's something that I've just naturally done because in in the military, we had to raise our hands about certain things, or you were voluntold. But I will say,
we do a lot of volunteering here too, right?
I'll just say that it's very similar, very similar.
All right, and so you're coming in as president in 2026 for the Charleston Association of Realtors.
Yeah.
What do you think? Where do you think this organization is going to focus on, and maybe do things differently than we have been in the past going forward? As you and I work together to kind of set that strategic framework along with the board of directors.
Yeah. I really think it starts. I always say things start at home, but it's really rebuilding trust. We need to rebuild trust in our community as an association. So one of my things is, I believe it starts with board transparency, board and committee transparency. So making sure that we understand, everybody understands, hey, here's what the board does, here's what the board's responsible for, here's what committees do, here's what they're responsible for, here's how you can be a part as well, because a lot of people just don't know what they don't know. But a lot of people also are not asking questions.
Yeah, they don't know that. I find a lot of people don't understand how decisions get made.
Yes.
And who's making them. And it thinks it's this ivory tower kind of thing, and it's really not. It's really about members coming together, discussing good ideas, good and bad, and kind of hopefully filtering out the bad ones and getting to good ones.
Yeah, and I'll say this, the smaller, and people think that their voices don't matter, and I want to change what that looks like here at CTAR. A quick example, in 2020, we sat around in the same building, and it was a DEI task force, and talked about, hey, what does it look like for inclusion on contracts? And from the Spanish community, because the Hispanics was one of the fastest growing communities at that time, and we talked about, well, hey, what would it look like to have contracts at least translated into Spanish? Well, that idea came from in our boardroom, like in CTAR's boardroom. And now, we took that through the process, took that up through SCR, and now those forms are available and have been for years. But that conversation started in our boardroom. That tells you, right, and look how many people are impacted from that. So my point here is that your voice does matter, and I want to make sure people understand that they do have a voice here at CTAR through our mechanisms and through our processes. The other thing I'll say that I want to make sure that we do is tell our story better. I think CTAR, we're doing a great job. Like, I talk to people all over the nation, just got back from NAR, NXT conference in Houston, and it was amazing, but it was so amazing to see how far that we already are. in Charleston. And sometimes we don't see those things because we're so inundated with the smaller issues that are here, not realizing we're protected from so much because we have great leaders. We have
So I'll tell you that.
CEOs
So tell that story now.
Yeah.
Tell the story of CTAR. I'll interrupt you and say, you want to tell it, tell it.
Yeah, so I think the story of CTAR now is that we have great leadership under your leadership, sir. And I do want to thank you for what you have done over your last months here. I know coming from Cape Cod has been a little transition, but I will say that we definitely appreciate you and appreciate your insight because it's been new ideas and things are starting to turn in the right direction. And I do think with as we talked before, I think with my ideas and, we can collaborate on some things. I think the new story is that CTAR, one, we are here to stay. We are a tool, but just like a tool in the tool belt, it doesn't, if you don't use it, you don't understand its value, you don't understand its purpose, and you don't get any use out of it, right? So you may feel like, hey, I'm paying for something and I'm not getting anything. Well, you're also not using it, right? And so I want to make sure that you understand what you're paying for, and you actually get that value 10x. Not just, not just here and there, not just all the time, but 10x. And I want to continue to make that be our story for years and years to come. Not just with me, right after me is Sarah Coleman Lee, which I'm super excited about, who's our president-elect for 2026. And then we'll have Whitley Boyd coming behind. And what I want them to understand is that it's not just about me and my presidency year. These things go after, year after year, right? Because everything's
the leadership team and the team together with a cohesive vision around what our strategic plan will be, and where we're going as an association. And I say this is, I think, too many associations are responsive, are responsive and not proactive. And, I think that where I've been really impressed with this leadership team and this board of directors is how forward thinking they are, how intelligent about the industry and where the industry's going, that I don't see when I've been around the country in all board of directors around the country thinking about what's next, right? And at times it can get frustrating to the agents because they're like, well, why are they talking about this? That's not happening. And then 6 months, 18 months from now, it does happen. And now they connect the dots, right? Yeah. But because we're in more conversations, we're thinking more ahead than most of the members. And I think most people over time will see that we're connecting those dots.
Yeah. I love it. And again, I think that's part of the membership value, right? Like the proactiveness where you guys are CTARs in the room when the agent can't be in the room or the broker can't be in the room, at all the municipal, all their meetings, city council meetings, county council meetings, we're advocating at the state level, at the federal level about all housing issues, and really just in our backyard. So, because you can't go to a city council meeting, guess what? We have somebody on staff that's their job, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also the ideas here, as you said, about the Spanish contracts, but that can also be policy changes, right? I mean, NAR's pushing for a raise in capital gains fees. I remember talking several years ago with NAR about the need for that to unlock housing inventory, right? Fannie Mae has a program out there now that allows kind of to factor in rents from ADUs into affordability calculations for their products. That came literally out of a conversation I had with NAR staff about, hey, we're getting more accessory dwelling units on the ground. How do we we need more flexibility in the Fannie Mae mortgage products to make this happen? And they went and got that done. And that's just because they don't know, like even the NAR staff, SCR staff, they don't know about the issues till our member. It wasn't me bringing the issues up. It was my members telling us these are the hurdles we're running into out in the field. And you may not have the solution, but if you tell us what the hurdles are, we can try to find solutions.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing too. There is no association without the members, right? And so the members have to realize that like your transaction matters. your client matters, your consumer matters, your process, the way you do it, like all of that matters. And when there are issues and obstacles that we need to overcome, that's when they need to, run it up the chain per se, bring it to the association. We want to hear, some of the issues so that we can figure out, hey, is there a policy change or is there a law that needs to be changed to help, streamline this? Because yes, this is impacting our industry and impacting our community, and we want to make things easier for the agent, not to make things harder.
Yeah, I mean, our focus on, for example, HOAs right now, on disclosures around HOA fees, or our focus on trying to work on make sure Mount Pleasant's accurately enforcing their business license fee ordinance, things like that.
Correct.
Are directly driven by conversations people are having to me and you, saying this is a problem that I'm running into my business. And so because it's a problem for me, it's a problem for all agents or brokers. Can we help, or all real estate consumers? Can we help try to fix this stuff?
Yeah, and then I love the fact that not only are they saying these things, we're actually taking action and bringing them along as well, right? Not just saying, hey, we'll get back to you. No, like, hey, help be a part of the process. I always say you want change, you got to be the change, and so I see that happening now, and I love that. And I will say, just to kind of to add to it, there are some local issues and local things that do go on, but again, we don't know. So if you don't say anything, you don't tell us, then we don't know that it's so much of an issue. The more that you do that, the more that you'll see change, and the more you'll see the value in what we truly offer here at CTAR.
Yeah, I think you and I both see like the two real core values of an association. There's really nothing else out there to do other than advocate for the industry and professionalize the industry.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I think advocacy is obviously a core component. And, what I love about what we do on the advocacy side is we work on those day-to-day issues that impact transactions, but then we also work on making sure the region's an attractive place to live and working quality of life issues, making sure we're building parks, making sure we're building roads, making sure that we're protecting open space. It's not just about, I love the day-to-day stuff and I love the big stuff, right? We're focused on both.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so key. We talk about, all of the organizations or headquarters that want to come here, or we're trying to attract here, the workforce that we're trying to get here. And we know that we don't necessarily have the housing or that capacity to put them in housing. But here's the thing is that it's not just siloed. We're not just focused on one thing. We're focused on different things. And we want to make sure that all the things that we are doing has an impact on your business, right? So I do think that that's important. Advocacy is I would say the number one. And then community engagement, man, I think is so key. I think it's something that we can do a better job at, and we will be doing a better job at in 2026 with our new community engagement.
And just a renewed focus on it. And I mean, it helps on the advocacy side, but it just helps the community, a better, more vibrant, thriving community, and us engaged in that helps the whole region prosper, and I think we all benefit from that. What I would ask you is, like, over the last several years, right, while inventory's up from where it was, it's still not where it was pre-pandemic. And the transactions are down, interest rates are up, so less buyers are in the marketplace. How are you coaching? Because a lot of your day spent coaching agents. How are you coaching agents through making sure that they're thriving in a environment where transactions are down and where they have a bunch of clients probably waiting for the interest rate environment to change?
Yeah, I mean, it's great, and actually do this all day, every day. So I always tell agents, first of all, you got to cut out the distractions, cut out the noise, like get back to the basics. Let's start with systems. Let's start with like you connecting with people. How do you talk to people? What database do you put them in? Like what is your system on lead generation and conversion? And then also what's your follow-up system? Like if you can focus on those three things, like, and also the consistency of that and the discipline of that, then you'll be able to understand and you'll get clients that will overcome the obstacles of the rates, right? But then it's also what content are you putting out? Right? Because we talk about, okay, rates are increasing, but what does that really mean for the consumer? right? In dollars, because people are thinking about, they're not thinking about, they hear the rate, they're not actually thinking about the rate, they're thinking about their monthly payment. How much is this going to cost me, right? And then and again, we talk about not just how you getting in the home, but then maintaining the home. How do you sustain? Okay, what is my process? What's my end goal? I always say to agents, and you need to talk to your consumers about, but when they purchase a home, they need to think about what's the exit strategy. So when I buy anything, I'm thinking about, how do I get out of this, right? If I need to, but then how do I use this again as a, maybe an investment property? But right now, I think the biggest thing is for agents is getting back to the basics. I really think they need to, focus on systems, focus on the product, focus on connecting that lead generation. The conversion piece is everything. And as these external factors, the interest rates, the housing inventory, those are things you can't directly, impact at all. But what you can directly impact is what you do when you wake up on the daily basis. What does your daily schedule look like? How much time are you putting away for a prospect? How much time are you putting away for certain things that you know that's going to bring you lead generation, or that's going to convert into a closing, or a client that converts into a closing? What are you doing? So stop focusing on what everybody else is talking about and focus on what you're doing. And I can promise you 2026 will look better if you do those simple things.
And, you talk about exit strategy for, the buyer, talking about that with them.
Yeah.
But one of the problems is the exit strategy is becoming delayed.
Yeah.
Right. So what we know from NAR data is that the average length of home ownership for that one homeowner has doubled over the last 15 years. We've gone from a normal average of 7 years to now like 14 years or 15 years even. As I think people were shocked in the values coming out of 08, 9, 10. They were waiting for them to build back up. Then when they built back up, then you started having a run up of housing prices, and then you ended up with the pandemic boom, and then you ended up now with interest rate hikes, and so people are staying in their home longer. As an agent, what can you do to kind of keep generating business when instead of every 7 years now, someone's going to kind of come and, your repeat client, now it's going to be every 15 on average. What can agents do to gather more then?
Yeah, I think that's great. That's something I wanted to bring up too. But two things. One, so it's all about the numbers. Well, obviously, you got to have more pipeline. You got to have more in your pipeline, which means you got to talk to more people. You got to have more conversations. That's number one.
Have real conversations.
Conversations that mean something.
Pick up the phone. Go places. Have conversations with people.
Actually follow up. I think that's one of the biggest things. People might have initial conversation, but following up is probably one of the agents' one of the biggest downfalls. But I will say have more conversations. But secondly, it's how we use this data, right? So we get the data, and it's like, yes, it's more delayed, but how do you use it? Well, if I was an agent, I would be thinking, maybe I start talking to those people now that's in those 14, 15, or let's just say 10 to 15 year. Maybe I start targeting those people, because if data says that, now people are moving around 13, 14, 15 years, whatever it is, okay, I probably need to start the conversation at 10 or maybe 9, right? And so I think it's not the data itself, it's how we use it. Now that's who I need to be targeting. And then I also need to be communicating this type of information to not only the buyer pool, right? And for them to expect to stay in their homes around that time. But then now, hey, seller, I know you've been in your house 10, 12 years. Hey, here's what it would look like to go to another, to upgrade. Or what is your family dynamic? Has it changed? These types of things, because they could be sitting on the fence worrying about an interest rate that they may be able to buy down, or may have enough equity in their home to make it, to make it worthwhile.
All right. Also, back to the association itself, I think over the last year and a half or so, the association, and at all levels, the local, state, and national, are taking stock of what we do, refocusing on our missions, redefining that mission at all levels. And quite honestly, a little of it's because of stuff that happened at the National Association. I think, everyone's painted with a brush that needs to kind of rebuild some trust. Mm-hmm. How do you think the associations are going about rebuilding that trust and to prove long term that the association's of value to that agent?
Yeah, I think we talked about rebuilding trust, but it's not what you say, but it's how you say it, and it's not what you do, it's about how you do it. And I think right now, I think the transparency from an NAR level has been it's been more transparent than I've ever seen. And I've been in real estate 10 years now. I know it's not a long time, but I've seen some changes just in the last 2 years.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been in this 17 years, with NAR, and they definitely are making changes. Now, some may say it's not quick enough,
Right.
or it's not all the changes they need to make, but they are making the changes and moving. I think they're moving more in the right direction.
Yeah, and that's also filtering down, right, to the state and the local levels. So I do think that agents will start to see a change. But here locally, I think we're available. Like myself, as a president-elect now, but even, John, our current president, he's been available to talk to members. You've been available to talk to members. Will, our whole entire staff has been available. I think people just aren't using it as much, but what we are doing now is going out to brokerages, right? It's not just waiting for you guys to come ask questions to us. We're going out to see what's going on? How can we help?
Yeah, I've been at over 25 so far brokerages, I think. So
That's amazing.
brokerage visits. Yeah.
Amazing, man. Amazing. Thank you for that, because I think it shows, representation matters for sure. But we need to get out there because we need to show them that we do care. And we need to show them that their voice matters, not just in this building, but outside the building.
And I think one thing that most people are surprised about when I go out and visit, it's not talking about here's events coming up at the association.
Yeah.
It's more of like, here's what the association is working on to solve bigger industry problems. Right. Here are the bigger industry issues going on, and here's kind of what we think about them. Because I think that is not just like, hey, here's a happy hour coming up, right? Like, it's like, no, here's the actual issues you're working on in the industry.
Yeah, and I think that's probably been the perception of a realtor association event in the past was, hey, it's just a happy hour, or it's just, getting together for drinks. No, it's not just about that. Yes, that's a part of it, sometimes, but there are a lot of other things that we have going on.
We're having a conversation on how to make your business thrive.
Yes.
How things that are coming down the pipeline that you're going to need to be planning for in your business in the next 2 to 3 years.
And I think all these things are agent value focused. And that's what it should be. And if agents can start to, one, show up a little more in those things and show up to our committee meetings a little more, I think they will see the value, see the true value. And again, we won't be so reactive. We'll be proactive, moving forward in the next coming years.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Stephen. I enjoyed our conversation and look forward to working closely with you over the next year.
Yeah, same to you, man. And thank you for having me. Look forward to coming back again.
Thanks for joining us on the property line. And what we do on the property line, the last thing I want to do is we leave everyone with one line to remember your conversation about. So what's the one line you would want people to leave about around your message today with everyone?
Yeah, my one line is to just lead your business with purpose.
All right. Thank you for joining us on the property line, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you.